I have to tell you something. I've spent the last few weeks writing this whole series on sacred play about the holiness of silliness, the sacred gift of imagination, the God-woven wonder of it all. And yet, I've been struggling to play myself. Not with toddlers. That used to come easy. But now with a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old, it's a little murky. Like those moments are still there, but something in me kind of holds back or hesitates. Why does something that once came so naturally now feel awkward? Why does play, this beautiful, healing thing, get so hard when we grow up? That's what I want to talk about today. Welcome, friend, to the Parent Forward podcast, where parenting meets spiritual formation. I'm your host, Julianne Luce, and today we're naming this tension. Why does delight feel distant? What's really happening under the surface? And how can we recover imagination? This episode is for the parents of tweens and teens who feel like joy has gotten a little quiet, for the grown-ups who secretly miss wonder but aren't sure how to get it back. Let's crack it open, gently and honestly together. I've been thinking lately about the myths we believe about growing up, like play is for little kids. Somewhere around middle school, the sidewalk chalk disappears, the games feel dorky, the eye rolls take over where giggles used to be. But here's the thing, they didn't stop needing play, it just got quieter. Another thought is that teenagers don't want to hang out with us. That's a myth too. They actually do want to hang out with us. They just don't want to feel like a problem or a project. But what they're actually craving is moments that feel spontaneous and mutual and totally human. Another thought is that screens are just how kids connect now. I want to gently challenge that one. Snapchat streaks are not real connection. Gaming for hours is not the same as imagination. These aren't evil in themselves, but they are counterfeit joys. And maybe the most dangerous myth of all, kids want to grow up fast. What if they only want that because we stopped inviting them to slow down with us? Growing up, I was what they call a latchkey kid, which is a fancy way of saying my parents weren't home much, and I spent a lot of time alone. I didn't have the internet or a phone. I didn't play video games. I had trees and sky and Barbies and G.I. Joes and a backyard that turned into a world. I held on to play long after my friends moved on. I played in secret. I knew it wasn't cool, but I also knew it kept something alive in me. Something curious, something imaginative, something real. No one was telling me what to do or how to be, and in a strange way, that made it safe. It was like I had no boundaries, but also no judgment, just space to explore who I was without the world giving me a rating. My kids won't get that kind of freedom, not with the world we live in now, but as their parent, I can try to create that kind of safety. I can help them hold on to something the world is constantly trying to erase. So what actually happens? Why does this playful, wonder-filled part of us fade? Let's talk brain science for a minute. In the world of neuroscience, there's this thing called synaptic pruning. It basically means that as we grow, the brain starts cutting off connections it thinks we no longer need. Kind of like, we haven't used this pathway in a while, so let's just clear it out. And unfortunately, imagination is often one of the first things to go. That's why so many of us, even if we want to play, feel stiff or disconnected. Like we're trying to climb back into a part of ourselves that's locked behind a door we can't open. But here's the good news. There's this incredible redemptive idea in neuroscience called neural plasticity. It means your brain can build new pathways. It can literally change. You are not stuck with the patterns you have, and neither are your kids. Psychiatrist and author Dr. Kurt Thompson, who has done remarkable work around shame and healing, says that what we pay attention to shapes who we become. So when we pay attention to delight, to beauty, to holy curiosity, we're actually rebuilding the road back to joy. Philosopher James K.A. Smith, in his book, You Are What You Love, says that our habits, our repeated, embodied practices form our desires. He reminds us that we can't just think our way into faith and wonder. We practice our way in. And I don't know about you, but that gives me so much hope because it means that play isn't just a personality trait. It's a spiritual habit, one we can return to, one we can model, one we can invite our kids into, not to make them young again, but to help them stay whole. This is all about imagination. And it's not just for childhood, but everything that's to come next in life. Imagination helps our kids problem solve creatively, to stay flexible in a rigid world, to dream about what's possible when things go wrong, and to connect with God in ways beyond rules and checklists. When we nurture their imagination, even in the teen years, we're building a tool set they'll carry into adulthood, into marriage, into crisis, into ministry, into leadership, into all the places where they'll need to think outside the box and see with God instead of just about Him. And when we play with them now, when we practice delight and curiosity and co-creation of joy, we're not just parenting, we're planting seeds of spiritual resilience. So if you've been wondering if it's too late, if your kids are too old, or you're too serious, or life is just too busy, I want to tell you, it's not too late, friend. This is still holy ground. You can rebuild this, one tiny, silly, sacred moment at a time. I want to go back to those myths, the ones we don't realize we've absorbed. We've already talked about the myth that teens don't want to be with us, but let's spell it out clearly. Myth number 1 is that teenagers want to grow up. They don't. They want to belong. And somewhere along the way, we've confused growing up with losing joy. They just want to feel safe, seen, and invited into something meaningful. Myth number 2 is that teenagers want to be left alone. Well, they do act like they do. They retreat, they ghost, they grumble. But what they're actually saying underneath all that is, don't give up on me. Pursue me without pushing. Be near without fixing. Myth number 3, teenagers are connecting through screens just fine. Nope. That's counterfeit connection. Social media, gaming, and texting can all have their place, but they're not the same as shared experiences, side-by-side laughter, or a real moment of awe. They don't form the same neural pathways, and they certainly don't lead to the kind of deep trust that playful presence can build. And last one, myth number 4, they don't want to be silly anymore. Actually, they do, just in different ways. Let me tell you about a moment that taught me this. I'd just come home from one of my spiritual direction intensives, where we spent hours learning how to hold silence, pay attention, and notice the activity of God in quiet spaces. So naturally, I brought that awkwardness home with me. We were out kayaking, me and my 3 kids, on this big local lake. We paddled all the way out to the center, and I said, okay, we're going to try something weird. They looked at me a little sideways, but they're used to this by now. Wacky mom moments are kind of a staple around here. I set the timer on my phone for 1 minute and said, we're going to sit still. No talking, no moving, just listen. Pay attention to what you feel, what you hear, what you notice in your body and around you. And they did it. They actually did it. 1 minute of silence, floating on still water, aspen trees shimmering, birds calling in the distance, a fish jumping. And then we talked about what we noticed. And then they asked to do it again. My oldest looked at me and said, I could do that all day. That was the most calming thing I've ever experienced. Could it be that holding space to notice the world is a form of play? That stillness and sensory wonder is actually one of the deepest expressions of joy? Play means bringing them along with us into our world. I saw this woman once on a riding lawnmower, cutting acres of grass. But what caught my eye was that her mower had a second seat, a tiny blue one, rigged up next to hers, with a child safely strapped in. The kid had goggles on and soundproof headphones, and together they were mowing the lawn, laughing and singing. And I thought, that's how it's supposed to be. We bring them with us. not just into our chores, but into our joy, into our lives, into the things we love and the things that we have to get done. Maybe play isn't always Legos and glitter. Maybe sometimes it's tandem lawn mowing and kayaking silence. Maybe it's showing our kids that grown-ups don't have to lose themselves when they raise children. They can invite their children into who they are becoming too. And I kind of thought, what if we simply looked at Jesus? You know, Jesus, he asked more than 300 questions in the gospel. He told stories instead of sermons. He doodled in the dirt. He turned water into wine. He pointed out birds and flowers and mustard seeds. He played with metaphors and welcomed children without agenda. Jesus wasn't rushed. He wasn't rigid. He invited people into wonder. He helped them notice. He made people laugh, not just repent. Jesus' posture was one of curiosity. And if he is the full expression of God, then we know this for sure. God is not afraid of mystery. God delights in the questions, and God still plays. Now, let's return to the part of us that feels blocked. You want to play, you want to laugh again, you want to join in the absurdity of parenting instead of just surviving it, but something gets in the way. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's fear of looking foolish. Maybe it's the running list in your head that says, you don't have time for this. You haven't earned joy yet. That voice, that's shame. Kurt Thompson reminds us that shame disconnects us from joy. It isolates us. But when we experience safe relational joy, especially in playful, embodied ways, our brains begin to rewire. Shame loses its grip. Pastor and poet Brian Zond, in his book Beauty Will Save the World, argues that beauty is not a luxury. It's salvation in motion. When we encounter beauty, we are re-enchanted. We are healed. And I believe play is one of the most accessible forms of beauty we have. So let's name what's been lost, but let's also name what's possible. Let's become people who notice beauty, who practice curiosity, who hold space for silence, who sing in the kitchen and mow lawns in tandem, who aren't ashamed to try again. I want to pause with you right here. We've named a lot today. The grief of losing play, the beauty of rebuilding it, the ache of watching our kids grow up in a world that steals wonder faster than we can protect it, and maybe a flicker of hope that it's not too late, that imagination isn't gone, that beauty still breaks in. I want to leave you with a blessing, a liturgy for the part of you that remembers and the part of you that's still trying to believe it matters. Let's settle in and receive these words as a quiet reminder that delight is not a luxury, it's part of your design. God of galaxies, you stitched delight into our bones. You made mud good. You made dirt holy. We confess how quickly we've let it go. We've traded play for productivity, wonder for worry, presence for performance. And still, you come with curiosity, with silence, with the shimmer of leaves in late afternoon light. Rewire our hearts, Lord. Restore our attention. Rekindle what's been pruned away. And for our children, may they grow old but not grow cynical. May they paddle out into the middle of the lake. God of joy, let us become people of sacred play again. For our own souls, for our kids, and for the healing of the world. Amen. If this episode stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the part of yourself that used to climb trees, or line up stuffed animals for a solo concert. I just want to say that part of you is still there. It might feel awkward to access it. You might feel like you don't have time or capacity or creativity anymore. But here's what I want to leave you with. You don't have to feel playful to begin practicing play again. Start small, start quiet, start silly, and start slow. You can't get this wrong. You just have to start. This week, here's your invitation. Find one moment, just one, to be with your child in a way that opens space for delight. Whether they're 3 or 17, whether it's laughing at a meme or whispering in a kayak or singing terribly in the car. Don't overthink it. Just notice it. If you try something this week and want to share how it goes, I'd love to hear about it. Find me on Instagram at Parent Forward Podcast or head to parentforward.com and send me a message. I read every single one. And if this episode brought some healing or hope, would you consider sharing it with a friend? It means more than you know, and it helps this message find the people who need it most. So friend, this is where we wrap our Sacred Play series. But before we jump into anything new, next week's episode will be a little different. It's not part of a series. It's personal and raw, a peek behind the curtain. I'll be sharing why I created Parent Forward the way I did, the intentional choices behind the format, the gentle takeaways, the benedictions, and also the fears I've wrestled with along the way. We'll talk about what's coming next on the podcast, how you can help shape it, and I'll be answering some of your beautiful questions. Plus, I'm hosting a giveaway, a bundle of some of my favorite tools to help you parent with more freedom, delight, and spiritual depth. It's a kitchen table kind of episode, so grab your coffee and join me. I can't wait. Until then, keep parenting forward, friend, one faithful and wonder-filled step at a time.